All right, we're recording now. How is everybody? So I think the real challenge is to think about how to make the ordinary extraordinary. And this little Qantas video does that for me. Many of you are already doing that, I know, but we may not be doing it with that in mind. To get kids up out of bed in the morning, put their uniforms on, get to school, a place called school has to look really different. Many of you heard me say that schools are primarily places young people go to watch their teachers work. And I think what you've been talking about is how we're in a very different time, and many schools have already moved way beyond that. We may still have pockets of it, but schools need to be vibrant, dynamic learning centers, not testing centers, and they need to be places that adults go to inspire and engage students so that they can have great lives. And they have to learn some stuff that society's decided, but that can't be the purpose. The purpose really is inspiring and enabling young people to have tremendous lives and to grow a democracy and freedom further from here so we can have a future for our children and grandchildren that's even brighter than it might appear. So in that, a lot of the philosophy stuff that you're about, a lot of the ethical stuff comes out. But how do we take that ordinary and turn it extraordinary? So let's open it up. And then I have about 3 sort of prerequisites I've teased out of the neuroscience just to close with that I think might be how we could really get a rubric around understanding if we've done that. Let's see if anybody has a reaction, if that tips their hand on anything that has already been done in your setting, or you were thinking of doing, or that PBL gives you a chance to do. How does that resonate with you?
Few blank looks.
I can give an example if you need me to start, but I can't practice my wait time as effectively online.
Go for it.
So I worked with a chemistry teacher, and if you've ever been around teachers of chemistry, you realize that a lot of the issues with chemistry are safety issues, and you can't really mix sodium and water. Have you ever tried to mix sodium and water? Sodium, Na, is the ingredient in table salt, for example, but if you mix it with water, you just get a boom. And so there has to be a safety lesson or two. What if children now, at the end of this year in chemistry, were designing a video, not necessarily with the $500,000 budget that Qantas had, to teach next year's students what is and isn't allowable when you're in the chemistry lab? Just as an example, something simple that it turns the ordinary, which is a teacher lecture about what not to do, into a student opportunity to use the multisensory, multimodal, project-based assumption that we could do this a lot of different ways that actually would be engaging and exciting and turn it into a learning moment that will live on past these children's lives. Now, this is where you'll have to check your health and safety guidelines, because they use Barbie dolls in order to prove what not to do. The kids came up with how to alight Barbie, and that might just not work well in the fire code in your building. It might not be good for Barbie, but it was a very effective video. So, you guys, what do you think? I can't hear if you're talking. I just apologize because of the logistics not being perfect.
I think we're good for you to continue, John. That's fine.
All right. So any other examples that might come from the crowd about, did the example about the chemistry video resonate with anybody? Were you able to hear that?
An authentic activity they're doing, an authentic like an orientation lesson for Year 7 students.
Yeah, Jeremy, if you don't mind repeating, it's just not any volume.
Yeah, maybe an orientation video that we could use in transition for our Year 6 coming into Year 7.
That's a great idea. Wonderful idea. Some of you know that I ran a K-8 school before coming here, and it was attached to our School of Education as a Dewey Lab school. And in Louisiana, in Year 4, they double down on the tests, meaning your 4th grade tests are twice as much. If you're in a small school, if you don't have literacy and numeracy mastered, your school can go into a penalty box where they're on double secret probation. And so we had the Year 4 students this year, if it were the equivalent, create some learning videos similar to Khan Academy. They were their own year 4 mini videos to teach basic math and literacy concepts to the year 3 students before the end of the year to get them ready for 4th grade in effect. So we have the students doing some review in advance of their testing to get the next year's students up to speed, and it ended up being much better than the drill and practice remediation we were doing. Again, that's not a very magical, maybe it's not making the ordinary extraordinary, but the kids really enjoyed teaching the younger kids and videoing those a la Khan Academy for their own peers. We didn't send them to anybody else, they were just internal. We didn't have to get all the clearances if we were going to post them in a permanent venue, but even doing something traditional like test preparation with kids teaching younger kids puts them in a matter of teacher, and they loved it. They came up with ways to explain concepts that were out of the book. And so I would call that extraordinary, even if it's sort of for the purposes of improving sort of basic skills. So an orientation video fits into that, and particularly if we're using the tools that kids are going to use anyway, we've got to steal the time back that they're spending at home doing all this stuff. It's just not necessarily academic. So if we call homework designing a video, laying out a music track, and figuring out whether or not the script is up to speed, and then vetting that with the teacher, that sounds like literacy and numeracy, and it sounds like a lot of kappa. It sounds like an awful lot of research, and you're going to have to be better at writing and speaking and listening and presenting. So that sounds a little bit like school to me.
Do we have any other examples, John?
Yeah, so how do we make the ordinary extraordinary? Does at least that give a challenge for us to think about? And as we get into the end of this year and next, to take those 1 or 2 things that we each might want to reframe. It could be how you start a staff meeting or how you finish it. Could be what's in the newsletter that is unforgettable. Could be building photographs into everything we do that are legal and legitimate, so we're really showing the work. It could be that we go Twitter live on meetings that we have in our school where parents can't come, or celebrations where grandparents who live in Perth can be beamed in without any expense. If you're confused or say, well, that's not, we can't do that, the department won't let us or whatever, you could use a tool like this, if it's, assuming we got the internet right, where you could have a closed network and just send 50 invites to grandparents who can't show up to the end of the year celebration and say, you're welcome to come in via online. There's all these ways to take technologies to turn things that we might have had closed to the world and open them up if we choose to. And I think that's another way to think about what we can do differently, to celebrate with the broader community that just might not be in our suburb.
Sounds great. Anything else? No?
Tracy, what else were you thinking we could do to extend this?
You're in charge here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to provoke this sort of thought. And if I were there, I'd take out a Post-it note and write down one thing and pinky swear with me. You're going to at least watch the rest of the pinky swear. No one breaks a pinky swear, right? Have you ever known anybody to break a pinky swear with you that I'm going to take this on and sort of say, what do we do that's so routine that it looks so much like school used to look that is part of the problem? And are there ways to rethink that using some of the technologies and tools of just the student perspective to really get excited about it? Because those things fit where my 3 kind of main points are. I've been doing a lot of look into the concept of toxic stress. And a lot of our young people today are manifesting this notion where their adrenal glands are on, and they've been on through a variety of potential crises in their lives, whether that's homelessness, whether that is abuse, whether that's being cold, whether that's moving a lot, whether that's divorce or alcohol, or drug use that has creeped into their lives where there's been some instability. And for young people in the early years, when toxic stress isn't nurtured well, it can lead to entering middle years in high school very always worried and always on. And we have some young people today who are very worried. They may not show it, they might be quiet, or they might be aggressive, but they may not be healthy in their cognitive way. So there's 3 kind of ways that we can work that out. So all of our schools need to have stability. And if we think about where in our curriculum we provide stable, nurturing, and engaging learning communities for all of our children. The children who aren't doing well today, you might take one of those 3 and say the nurturing component. Any child that comes from any disarray, like being cold in the winter, is in a mode where their brain and the cognitive processing is a little bit wobbly for them. But so they need a stable, nurturing, and engaging environment. A lot of the curricular and pedagogical approaches you shared with me are going to get at engagement. Will they be nurturing? Will they be anti-bullying? Will they provide stable, positive environments? Will children who are overweight not feel that that's the #1 issue facing their lives? Will children who have a learning difficulty or disability or who feel awkward about themselves have equal participation because of the inclusion nature of what we're doing? If we do that, we can rebuild the neural pathways of every child, and we can connect the dots so that they can actually overcome that toxic stress and be fine. That's the power of teaching in 1 hour, in one lesson, in one day. It can turn that around. So while we're reinventing curriculum to get kids excited and do these kind of things you've been really all about in this conference and back in your settings, I think it's also crucial that we sort of find a way to say, is this stable, nurturing, and engaging? So if we can put those three together, we might have a chance at really getting it right.